got a ZZR1100, classic, it's cool. The guys spent a fortune actually like kind of getting it all back together again. Now the real sad thing is, 20 years ago these were like, everyone did them, they were just constant. But this one, no bueno, runs, well listen to this. It's naff, so we're gonna fix it.
Right, so John obviously ran this the other day and it didn't rev out, or so I'm told. So we're going to start stripping this down, get the carbs off, get them on the bench and take a look. Hopefully it's something obvious and nice and simple. Main reason being is the customer's just spent about 600 quid on these carbs, as they're meant to be an as new reconditioned set. So hopefully he hasn't wasted his money, so let's get it stripped apart and find out. See how nice long screwdrivers come in handy. So I'll just get this front shroud off. Back bolts there. Already took the front tank mount bolts off. Turn the fuel tap to off. Took the fuel feed line off. Hopefully then it should lift up once we take the breather off the back. Disconnect what's underneath, anything left. Get the tank off on the bench. Back in the cupboards. Yeah. Back in the cupboard. Ooh, there's a man's hanky. What are you laughing at? There's a better position. Okay, so took the shroud off, which took a couple of minutes of battling. So if you're going to put a different bolt in there, make sure it's straight and not completely fucked. Can go in the bin, so I'll put a new one in. So next thing is, we'll lift the tank up. That's a good connector I've just disconnected there. Take this breather off, maybe one more breather underneath. Get the tank off. We should have a nice great big airbox, which will have ducts there, either side. We'll whip that off. We'll have a look inside and make sure there's nothing really bizarre going on inside the airbox, like something's blocked up, but I highly doubt it. These normally have a foam filter in a cage as well. So we'll take that off, have a little look at that anyway, and then we'll get to taking the carbs off and go from there. Like I said, whopping great big airbox. Good thing is underneath looks really, really clean. So obviously someone's took a bit of care on this bike. So we'll whip this off, get all these off. These obviously have coolant running through these as well, so we have to cap that, so it's like a heating system. So I have to stop the bowls freezing in the cooler temperatures in winter. So we'll clamp all that, disconnect that, airbox off, cables off, and then yeah, we should be pretty. For anyone asking, this is a really, really low torque setting that I'm using to undo these, because obviously it's going into plastic, so we don't want to destroy them. And as I said, horrible foam filter with a cage. I just don't like them, I'm just not a fan of them. It smells of old fuel actually, a bit weird. But we'll whip these bits off, get the tank off, get the airbox off and see what's happening. So on these you don't need to take absolutely every single bolt out. Not that it makes much difference, but obviously can't leave it out the way. So let's carry on. I haven't missed too much while we're putting a bit of charge on the camera. All I've done is take the airbox base off, which was literally a few 8mm bolts. When they're on the bench, we'll take them two off, and then the velocity stacks will come off then. So I've took the choke cable off, which has a little brass bracket there that controls the choke rail. So just take that screw out, it allows you to move it and get the cable off, and I've put that in the strip tray. We'll take cables off, so on this it may be a case of taking them off from the throttle housing first. We'll clamp the coolant feeds on both sides, undo them. Then it's a case of just undoing the Jubilee clamps that are on the rubber inlets that hold the carbs onto the rubber inlets, should I say, or seal them. And then we'll pull them off, we'll drain them, get all the shitty fuel out there because it stinks of stale fuel now. And then we'll blast them apart and see what's going on. Reminded me just then, this question's been asked before, why is there 2 throttle cables? No, you don't necessarily need 2 throttle cables, it's a safety feature. So one opens or pulls the cam open, which opens the throttle blades, and one is for you to be able to manually return it. Yes, the actual system is spring loaded to shut, but if for whatever reason there's an issue that doesn't do that, which can be all manner of things that we could go into, but that whole point is, in theory, you should be able to then shut the throttle with your grip. You should be able to turn the throttle and manually do that by pulling and push and pull on the cables. As I say, what we always do, and it's a bit of a contentious one because it's not actually an MOT failure, which John hates, and I agree with this. So we all always try lock to lock. There should be 3 to 5 mm 3-plane throttle cables, and lock to lock, that should return in our opinion. But it's not actually a fail on an MOT, it's an advisory. So you can have somewhere you go full right lock and these cables aren't routed correctly, or they're not set up properly in terms of free play, and it'll just stick like that, and then you have to manually do that. It should work itself basically. So it's a safety feature. You don't have to have them. Obviously on newer bikes now, most of them are electronic throttle. Some have a set of cables to go to a potentiometer to give you that cable feel that we all like. But yeah, that's the reason why you can have one cable, but it's a safety to have the 2. So while it was charging up, I just got them off, but I'll go over what I did. So as discussed, we've got the 2 coolant lines that feed into the bottom. So clamp them, take them off, undo the idle control screw. The idle adjuster sits in a little clip there, so undo that, so then we could lift the carbs up a little bit. That gave us access to start playing about with the cables. Managed to pull the slack on the first one, just pop it out. The other one was a bit of a pain, so I just undone it at the top. 2 screws, dead easy, so it only takes 30 seconds to do that. That gave us enough slack for me to get around and just pull the other cable off. They were free to come off then, so I've just got them on the bench. So in a sec now, we'll have a brew and then we'll go into stripping them down. Haven't seen anything obvious so far to say everything looks good and they return. Doesn't seem to be any split pipes or anything of that nature. Does stink of stale fuel. Has that given us issues before? Yes. So it could just be a strip and clean, but we'll find out when I take them apart in a minute. Before we strip the carbs, customers told us anyway, he's put brand new coil packs on it, HT leads, but we'll take the plugs out of it, because you never know, it might give us an indication of what's going on in there. What it tells us so far is he really likes copper slip. Oop. That was a satisfying noise, wasn't it? Did you hear that? I'll leave these out for now as well. Everything stinks of stale fuel. Looks like they've barely ran on them, to be honest. But it really could just be crap fuel. Oh, loud bike. Hey, how funny would it be if, like, because they're reconditioned, they've just got, like, nothing, or they're all blanked or something?
What's blanked?
Inside. He's left something in. I've tried all them, they all work fine and feel nice, to be honest.
Well, that one's got fuel. That one's got fuel. That one's got a tiny bit of fuel. That one's got fuel.
Could be just because of...
Fuelless! Hey, that'd be economical, wouldn't it? Doesn't have any fuel in it.
Could be just the float bowls. Could be the float bowls emptied out. So, I would strip them there, but as you can see, because it's so open, it gets a bit dusty and a bit, use of a better word, they can get a bit shitty quite quick out here. So if we do them in the dyno room, it's a much cleaner environment, so all the cleaning equipment is in there anyway. He's a tit. So we'll make some space in there, and either me or John will strip them, inspect it all, and yeah. Very unprofessional though.
And welcome back. Fucking hell, that's hot. Carbs have all been blown apart now. Everything's been cleaned. There wasn't anything super obvious that was causing this to not run very well. So I was kind of expecting, because of the way it wasn't lifting very well, wasn't accelerating very well, that the needles were going to be problematic, whether it be the actual diaphragms themselves. Basically, they've got to seal to a position where the vacuum crate from the engine sucks the air out above the diaphragm to lift the slide up. What can happen is, if the diaphragm, which is this bit, isn't seated properly, say for example this is in there, or it's cracked or damaged or split or anything, it doesn't create that suck to be able to lift the slide up. So if you imagine this is, you've got your lid on top of here, as you suck the air out, you actually lift the slide up. That's actually what happens with this little hole. So that little drilling is on the engine side. So as the air's sucked through there, it sucks the air out of here and then lifts the slide up. That's how that works. So I was anticipating there being a bit of damage to this, and fortunately there wasn't. So we'll see where we go from there. But everything's been cleaned anyway, so we can make sure that we do our due diligence to make sure the carbs themselves are clean, prepped, ready to go. They are new, or they've been rebuilt in the past, because they've got a rebuild kit in them. Problem with some of the rebuild kits is they actually don't have like numbered jets. They just basically drill it to the size of the OE size-ish. So I can't use these because, one, they're not numbered, two, I don't know how accurate they are. I don't even know how accurate they are amongst themselves either. So if 1 and 4 are different or whatever, so it could cause me a bit of grief. So what we're actually going to do is we'll use a cheat, and we will use the Dynajet fitting instructions for a ZZR1100. It's kind of a good little tactic, is if you're rebuilding a set of carbs and you need a good baseline position, download the Dynajet fitting instructions. So whenever you've got jet kits, they'll give you the jet kit and it'll tell you roughly what setup it's for. These call them stage ones, but ignore that. Just look at what exhaust, air filter, etc. And then go off what jet size they recommend. And that's literally what we're going to do, and that's going to be our base starting position for these. And then I can ignore these entirely because they're just going to be, it's too much of a variable for us. And then do the rest of the settings as the same, and then go from there. So let's build it up. Giving it a good run now. Made some adjustments, and we've just balanced it up as well. So all in all, a lot of it was actually down to the fact that the reason why it was running so badly before, the carbs, in fairness, were fairly clean. There's nothing like horrendously wrong with them. I expected there to be a bigger issue than what we found, but it indicates that unfortunately the quality of the rebuild kit that they used was just not very good. Those indiscrete main jets that had no numbers on them were potentially causing us most of the problems, because of the fact that we don't know how good they were, what size they were, etc. We didn't bother using them in the first place. As soon as we replaced them out and put our base settings in, we were actually not far off. Then it's just a few little trim bits here and there to get it to iron it out and get it the best out of it, and then just balance it and sort it all out, along with clean and gap all the plugs and do all of that. So I think it was down to a poor rebuild kit that's potentially caused the majority of his issues. But that's all sorted. We're happy. Runs really well. Sounds pretty good. It's nice working on an old bike now and again, especially since I haven't worked on one of these for 10 years probably. So that's pretty cool. We'll do a little video now, and back to the customer.